birthday to me, happy birthday to me, happy birthday to Carla, happy birthday to me. Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Carla if you are new here, and I make videos about how I show for myself, and sometimes I do that by singing to myself happy birthday because I'm a little sad and pathetic. But anyway, thank you so much guys for tuning in today. Today it is my birthday. I am 37 years old, or years young today, and what I thought I would do for a little kind of fun video is almost like a letter to 27-year-old Carla. I'm going to have a bit of fun editing this, I think, and looking back over some memories. The reason I wanted to do this at 27 versus 37 is I believe that there are a number of pivotable differences in my life since then. There are some really obvious ones, there are some not obvious ones, and what I'd love to do is just tell you a little bit about those changes, and then also maybe give myself a bit of advice and hope that it might resonate somewhat with you if you are younger, if you are older. Maybe some of the bits of advice through my journey to know myself and journey of self-compassion and showing up for myself, and maybe that will maybe help you guys in some way, and we can all learn a little bit of something about ourselves. Maybe I can learn a lot about myself as well in this period. So let's take it back. Let's take it back. It's reverse and traverse. I don't know what that means. Also, we're dealing with some large hair today because my fringe is not fringing, so it's gone to the side. So I'm kind of feeling like a Dallas kind of woman. Anyway, that's bigger the hair, the closer to Jesus. So let's take it back to 27-year-old Carla, and what was she doing then? So the first part of being 27, I was single. I was living with my mom and dad in an apartment in a nice area of Dublin, and I was a manager for a charity, but I was also a carer for my dad. My dad was, when he passed away a few months later, he was nearly 91 years old. And yes, he was my biological father. And of course, when you get to being an older person, your physical limitations can start to decline. I was daddy's little girl, and I wouldn't say I sacrificed I think 20-something-year-old Carla used her father as an excuse to not flourish in life, not get outside of herself and to branch out on her own. And funny, I was actually talking to a friend around this time, around kind of January, February, when I was 27. So my birthday's obviously in December because you're watching this now. So around like the couple of months being into 27, I was speaking to a friend about the possibility of moving out and getting an apartment together. And this would have been the first time that I lived outside of the family home, except when I lived in New York. And, I was like, my God, like if I can do this, but there was something really holding me back. I had so much fear. I had so much anxiety. I had a support system and a support network. I had a safety net that I could fall on by living at home, but I kind of knew that and used the excuse of him needing me. And he did need me, but I could have made it work. I didn't allow myself to be selfish enough in that way to push myself out of the house and to flourish and to become an adult. I was still very much so trapped and traumatized child. And March 31st, 2020, whatever, I remember what year, 2014, when I was 27 years old, my dad passed away. And I wasn't shocked at all. So that was probably the biggest kind of changing point for me, is that I wasn't shocked at all. I knew eventually it was going to happen because he'd had so many issues. He'd been in and out of hospital for so long, and he lived a really good life. But I knew it was going to be incredibly difficult on my family. It was going to be incredibly difficult on my mom, who had been with him since she was very young and was a carer for him for the majority of her life and her later life. And it was an incredibly difficult time. And around that time, I was drinking a lot, a lot. I was drinking 5, 6 nights a week. And of course, it's easier to do that when you are living at home and you're not paying. Like, I would be contributing, but I wasn't paying the rent. I wasn't paying the bills or all of the bills. I had a lot more disposable income, and I was drinking all the time and eating. So we'll go from a point of, drinking during the night and then getting takeaways on the way home and eating those, and then waking up, going to work, and repeating the cycle again and again and again. And, I was able to drink between 3 to 12 Jack and Cokes a night. That was my drink of choice. So obviously it's full of calories because it's whiskey and it's Coke, like fully leaded Coke. I know now why I was doing that. I know now that I was desperately unhappy. I had depression, undiagnosed. I had severe anxiety in social situations, but most importantly, of course, I had incredibly life-limiting beliefs. I had a negative self-talk to beat all negative self-talk, and in social situations, I used alcohol then to boost my confidence, to build my confidence, and to express myself, and to give me literal Dutch courage. And I was also quite promiscuous at the time. I didn't have any respect for myself. I didn't have any respect for myself in terms of what love looked like to me and what love was. I felt grateful for any type of attention because I didn't feel like I deserved it. So when I got attention, and typically from very much so the wrong people, I accepted it and went with it because I didn't know what else to do. I was really up to a point, up to the, it started to change around the time when I turned 27. Just in the early period, I started to kind of knock off some of the a-holes that were hanging around, just kind of like, I don't really know if I want, I started to think a little bit more for myself. And at the time, my best friend had met somebody who was treating her really, really well. And it started to kind of shine a light on me. And I know I've talked about this before, when we start to change behavior and we start to change something in our lives, it can end up holding a mirror up to those around us, and they can start to feel judged or shamed, or they can start to notice something about their behavior. And I saw the way he was treating her, and I kind of was like, well, that's really interesting. I wonder what that's like, and I was kind of dating somebody at the time, and I was just like, now thinking back on it, oh my God, what were you thinking? But I was young, and I wasn't just young, I was younger than I thought I was. I was very much so acting consistently from that inner traumatized child, that child who, sought love and sought affection and wanted comfort and sought the comfort from people who were no good for her. And I acted through that way. That's the way in which I communicated my value was in my body, and that's all it was good for. It wasn't good for anything else. And I allowed people, now I realize I thought I was accepting of love, or I was getting attention, or I thought it was positive, but now I realize I was just being used. And I would love to go back and give that 27-year-old, she had started to turn at that point, but I'd love for her to go, you know what, no, I deserve more than this. And she did deserve more than this. And if you're watching, you too deserve more. You are a valuable human being, no matter what size you are, no matter what you are doing in your life, you are valuable. And you deserve to be treated with love and respect. And that's something I didn't allow myself to do until I turned 27. Until that point, I had, really acted, took what I could get. And then as I started to move on, and my dad died that March, that's when things started to change for me. I think when you lose a parent, a significant person in your life, and I'm no stranger to loss, but losing him kind of cleared things up for me a little bit. It kind of like, you no longer have this excuse. You deserve a good life, and you deserve to treat yourself well. And one day, a couple of months after he passed away, 13th of June, I was out with friends and we were sitting in a bar, and I was talking to a friend of mine, and I had stopped kind of drinking as much as I had been. I had started to kind of wind things down a little bit, and I was still smoking constantly, smoking all the time. Yeah, it's funny, like it comes back naturally. I hadn't seen her, and I hadn't seen her since my dad had passed away, and we were sitting around, and she said to me, she was like, how, like, are you dating anybody? Are you interested in anybody? And I was like, honestly, I'm not. Like, I'm not interested in anybody at the moment. I'm actually happy being by myself. And it was the first time in my life, where I genuinely meant it. It's like, I actually don't want anybody. I'm good. I'm grand. Good by myself. I'm okay. And I kind of, I was just living my life, and I was, trying to navigate this new life now of not having my dad there and still kind of caring for my mom. And then that night, after I said that to her, 45 minutes later, I walked out into Brussels, downstairs in the Rock Bar, where I went many, many times before. And I saw a very tall man with long hair and a goatee and glasses, and he walked across in front of me, and I went, new meat, because that's going to give you an idea of my frame of mind at that point. And felt something shift in the world at that point. I went upstairs and was smoking, having a chat with my friend. I didn't want to be there anymore. I was going home after that. A friend of mine was, she wanted to go dancing, and everyone wanted to go dancing on her own. I was like, she's fine, leave her. And I was just, when you're in a foul mood, and I was like, I'm finishing the cigarette, I'm finishing my drink, and I'm going home. And I was like, really like scowling. And then Barry, my friend, said something, and I laughed. And as I laughed, I turned around and saw said tall man. And he saw me laugh. And my friend Barry started talking to him. And yeah, that was Vincent, and that's how we met. So I met Vincent at 27. Funnily enough, I told him I was 28. Genuinely thought I was 27. Still now, I'm like, when I said I was 37, I was like, am I 37 or am I 38? Am I 36? Am I 35? What age am I? But yeah, I told him I was 28, but I was only 27. But that was the beginning of my relationship, and that was the start of me changing a lot of things about my life and starting to see myself through another person's eyes, not just a friend's eyes, but through a lover, a partner, a boyfriend, through their eyes. And when I can see that now, when I look at that now, I was very lucky to have met him, because I think he kind of started to give me that first glimmer of the person that I was. And he has loved me and been with me because he could see whom I was, trapped inside myself, and making that connection. So for me, being 27, I had those pivotal moments that have led me to be the person that I am now at 37, to the woman that I am now at 37. 27 was really the age where I was no longer binging. So I had been binge free for a number of years, but I still wanted so desperately to lose weight. I wanted so badly to lose weight, and I was trying everything. This is when I started joining a gym again. Vincent and I started going to the gym together. That was one of our big things. I remember standing outside the gym smoking before we went in. I knew what to do, but I didn't understand what was wrong with me. That was the way I was speaking to myself. What's wrong with you? Why can you not lose weight? You have the guy, you have the place. And I was so insecure. I was so insecure in myself. I thought every couple of minutes that he was going to leave me. I was so sure that Vincent was going to leave me, that he was going to, you know, learn that he had made a really bad mistake and that he was going to be gone, and that, like, well, obviously he has to leave, because why would he be with me? Because I'm horrible, I'm ugly, I'm disgusting, I'm gross. And he wasn't. I'm very, very, very lucky that he was incredibly patient and kind and caring, and had obviously, I think the one thing about Vincent is that he has no ego. He's no, like, everybody has a bit of ego, but he's no bravado ego. He's a very kind, considerate person. And actually, that's one piece of advice that I'd love to give out. If anybody's single and watching this, I watch a lot of really crap reality TV shows where girls pick apart men for their tiniest little, you know, style choices, or their teeth aren't perfect, or their glasses aren't this, or whatever. Please don't ever. That is a juvenile way of looking at things. It is insignificant, because if you discount somebody for something so frivolous, you might miss out on the best thing that has ever happened to you. So just, that's an aside. Because if I had, like, you know, seen him with his leather shoes and his trousers. But I'm incredibly lucky that he was so patient, because I, at that time, was riddled with insecurities. I was riddled with lack of self-belief, lack of confidence in myself, lack of any kind of self-esteem. And I found it so difficult. It was so, so hard. And I still was seeking comfort with food. I was trying to, now I know that I was escaping those feelings with food. I was using that to numb out, and that's because I was a food addict, undiagnosed food addict. I didn't even really understand what food addiction was, or why it was, or what was happening in it. And I also didn't realize at the time that I have ADHD, and have had ADHD for the whole time, for the majority of my life. Now, it did get exacerbated after birth. Trauma can increase the symptoms of ADHD. Addiction and ADHD have a tendency to go together. Not everybody who has addiction has ADHD. Not everyone who has ADHD has addiction, but I have both. And I was in this nice, like, this perfect soup of, you know, reaching for something. So the alcohol and the food. And I was eating and eating and eating. And I definitely put on a lot of weight at this time. And Vincent did as well. Because, you know, when you're in that happy time and first in your relationship. And this was my first real relationship. And we were living together and we were happy. But I was convinced he was going to leave me. Convinced. Absolutely convinced he was going to leave me. I didn't value myself as a person at all. I didn't see why anybody would be interested in me, why. And even though at some points I would have seemed very confident, but it was bravado with alcohol, or it was just general bravado in trying, you know, sometimes the most insecure person is the loudest. That year Vince and I decided to do sober October. And we decided to not drink for a whole month and see how we got on. And that was the moment where I stopped drinking. I stopped drinking pretty much, I think, like, I drank a little bit, but I never went back to that excessive binge drinking. I would have a couple of nights where you get absolutely pissed with friends, you know, but, like, I think I could count in the last 10 years, like 5 times maybe, that I've done that. But that was one of the starting points, I believe, for me in my entire change, was that sober October. And I'm so grateful to 27-year-old Carla for deciding that point, you know what, I don't think I need to drink. And yes, you do lose friends. Yes, you know, things are weird and awkward and different. But also you can drive somewhere and life kind of becomes easier, and then you're not hungover, and then you have a fresh day the next day and all this kind of stuff. And I'm not going to get into my drinking history, but that was the first step, I believe, in my overall change in my life. So first thing I quit was drinking, then I quit smoking, and then I was diagnosed food addict, and then changed everything, changed my mental health, changed it all. So I do believe it was kind of like this holistic, like all-encompassing thing to get rid of the things that were in my life, or at the time, get rid of the things that weren't serving me. It was the first step to do that. Well, that getting rid of the boys and getting rid of alcohol and seriously reducing my consumption of alcohol. I'm so grateful to myself for that point, and grateful to Vincent as well. One of the biggest things here for me is that I had my barriers up. I had built a wall of protection around me, a bravado, a front face, you know, when you go to the theatre and there is the curtain, but then there's this, like, I'm sure somebody who's in theatre will tell me what it's called, but you know, that kind of like roll that's there, and they lift that up to reveal the stage. I had that up. I literally had a wall up so you could never see behind, so you couldn't see all the things that were going on and all the switches that were happening behind stage, in the backstage when changing all the sets up. I had that up, and that was a firm barrier. It was designed by me, unconsciously of course, or subconsciously, to keep the world out from what was going on inside me that I didn't understand that was going on inside me. And it wouldn't be for another probably 5 or 6 years that I would start to take that wall down, and now that wall is down and it's been replaced with boundaries, healthy boundaries. But the barrier wouldn't let anybody in, whereas the boundaries open for some people. I'm surprised that I made it through my relationship, you know, we're nearly 10 years together now, because I had such great barriers built up. I had such a wall that nobody could penetrate, but people could see. Some people could see slightly behind it. And of course I had friends who I would let down a little bit for, but still not. I, at the time, didn't understand how much pain I was in, nor did anybody else. I thought that everybody lived life in this much pain, in this much heartache, with this much negative self-talk, with this. I thought this was normal, and it wasn't. 27-year-old Carla thought that everything that was happening inside her was just what people did, and that I was overweight because I, you know, was worthless and there was something wrong with me, or, you know, like diets don't work, or I'm supposed to be this, or any other excuse that I told myself. Oh, there are so many changes between then and now, and it's really like a polarized difference because, well, the biggest change is obviously I'm half the weight, over half the weight that I used to be, less than half the weight that I used to be, going from 180, losing 183 pounds. That's obviously the biggest change. Visually, noticeably, it's the thing that people know me most for. But it's the change in the mental health that is the most impactful. It is the change in the life-limiting beliefs and the skills and the tricks and the coping mechanisms that I've learned by working on myself and my personal development, which have really stood to me to bring me through to this point and to make me the woman I am today. Another huge difference is my vulnerability, and I used to see femininity and vulnerability as a weakness. I now see it as such a beautiful thing. I see it as something that should be praised and celebrated, because being vulnerable is so beautiful, and vulnerable with the right people. And it's when you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you really connect with people on a completely different level. It has cemented my relationship and made it so much stronger by literally taking those barriers down, creating boundaries, but good and healthy boundaries, as opposed to no, stay out. My anger levels are much better. I used to get very frustrated, get very worked up, and it was probably an ADHD thing. I am a much calmer person now than I was at 27, so being so much calmer. Then there's the kind of obvious, you know, things that have changed in my life is that I think I look better. That's one. Which I never looked bad. I was never ugly, you know, but I look better. I look healthier now. I'm happier. I'm actually genuinely happy. And happiness isn't a constant state. It's an ever evolving and moving and fluid state, but I am happier now than I was before. And I have a house. I own my own home with my partner. We have a child. We have 2 kitty cats who are sleeping behind me. I am now an exerciser. I enjoy exercising. I enjoy walking. I love dancing with every fibre of my being. I don't drink anymore. The thought of going out and getting drunk makes my skin crawl. I could think of nothing worse. I used to have terrible FOMO about not going out on nights out, and now I couldn't think of anything. Like, you go, I'm staying here. I'm very happy and content in what I think 27-year-old Carla would have considered the mundane and boring. There is nothing boring about my life. But I think that's what she would have considered before. And I think one of the things that I would love to tell her the most is, first of all, is that you are worthy. You are a worthwhile human being. You are valuable, that you can leave your job, you can leave your home, you can find something better because you deserve it, and you are worthwhile, and you're intelligent, and your weight does not correlate to your level of intelligence. I'd also tell her that it's okay to be not okay, and I don't have to put on a front with everybody. You don't have to have your barriers up and not let everybody in. It's actually good if you let some people in, especially those who you trust, like your sister and your partner. I want to tell her that one day it's going to be okay. One day you are going to walk into a clothing store and you're going to be able to buy something that you want. You won't have this hanging over your head for the rest of your life. I want to tell her that it's going to be okay. Life is going to be okay. That you're going to have a son, you're going to have a career, and that one thing that you really wanted to do was to do something that inspired others, and that is, you have done something now that has helped to inspire thousands of people and to help to change the lives of thousands of people. And I know she would have poo-pooed that away, but I want her to know that it's, guys, that is the end of this video. I know it was a bit random, I know it was a bit all over the place, but I just thought I would do a little bit of a talkie, you know, difference between 27 and 37 and how many differences there are. Also a lot more piercings. I have better quality hair. I have Botox. I have a nice house. I have the wardrobe of dreams. I work for myself. I have my own business. And yeah, that one day in the not too distant future, you are going to do something that helps to inspire others, and that you will feel the meaning in your life, and that your life has meaning and has value. So guys, that's the end of the video. Please leave me a little birthday cake or birthday celebration, something emoji down below. And I think this is my last video for this year. There might be one more vlog, but I think this is the last sit down. But I will see you again in the new year. Thank you all so much for being with me, and I'm sure for the happy birthday messages that I'm sure you left, because you're always so generous. So I love you all, and please don't forget to show up for yourself in the next couple of weeks, and I will chat to you in the new year. Bye guys.